You're listening to Sarah Talk. It's political.
You could run a fucking pet rock against Donald Trump, and I would vote for the pet rock.
Yeah.
That's where we're at right
Yeah.
Critical.
One of the things that drives me nuts as an atheist is that my polling location is at a church. And I don't necessarily have a problem. I'm not going to like burst into flames walking into a church.
Now, after being on this show and having heard your viewpoints on some things, my advice to you is don't test this. I won't burst into flames.
And positively LGBT positive.
In many states, you can still be evicted from housing simply for being gay or transgender. Stand and fight with us.
Oh, and occasionally completely absurd.
I don't know if you've ever seen a lightning bug, but he flies around with a flame of light coming out of his behind. The lightning bug got a flame coming out of his butt.
It's a beautiful night tonight. All the sodomites are out.
And now, from Orlando, Florida, your host, Sarah Austin.
Hey everybody, welcome to Sarah Talk. I am Sarah Austin, your host. In the studio with me tonight, my lovely wife Becca.
Hello.
And OG co-host Mandy Imus.
Hello.
Back in the house.
It's so nice
It's
to be back.
been a long time.
It's been a little while. It's been
Welcome
a minute.
back.
Yeah.
You know what? It's been a while.
What?
I forgot to mention this last week. Last Saturday was Sarah Talk's 3rd anniversary.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
June 30th, 2015 is when we started this crazy thing.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
2016?
2016?
15.
15. Oh, the world has gone to shit.
Right?
Wow.
Well, what's been going on with you?
With me?
What's new?
Oh, not a whole
Same
lot.
shit.
Same shit, different day, different story. You know, doing my thing. Pissing people off on Facebook and the internet for my political and social views.
Hey, you got to
let's-
do a little bit of that.
Let's talk about that because I have a method to teach you.
You have a method to teach me?
Conversational method, yes.
About what?
To talk to people who have differing opinions.
Oh, no. No.
Okay. I'm drinking my normal rum and Coke tonight, but Mandy
Yeah. I brought my own bottle of Jack.
on the rocks.
On the rocks. Just Jack.
Just Jack.
Just to let you know, Sarah and Becca are little pussies over here, and they couldn't even take a sip of straight Jack.
Wait a minute. We did take a sip.
Take a sip.
We couldn't.
And I went,
Okay, first of all, I feel like I handled mine much better.
You did.
She did.
Totally.
Much
Yeah.
better.
I used to drink that stuff like that.
But this
But
is
it's
the
been
new.
years.
This is the new. I should start an ad for Jack Daniels because this is the Jack Daniels honey, and it goes down much smoother. But clearly
But
not
not
for
for
Sarah.
me.
But I'm gonna set this right here in case you guys go to your local liquor store and you need some liquid courage and or numbness from the world. Stuff right here.
Jack Daniels is not a sponsor of the Sarah Talk podcast, and we do not
Endorse.
endorse
Here,
it,
I'll
yeah.
turn it around from the bag. But it is a sponsor of my life.
There you go. So
Dan says, wasn't Sarah still in her teens in
I
2015?
love you, Dan.
Oh,
She was just a
flattery
baby.
will get you nowhere.
Everywhere. Flattery will get you everywhere.
You were a newborn in your new
Yes.
identity.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. So for those of you who have just recently
Yeah.
joined us, funny story. I was talking to somebody last night about the early days of the show, and
Nope. Sorry, Dan. You're not going to be able to see my drink
Oh,
tonight.
here.
Yeah, I gave Mandy
There you
one.
go. Mandy's
so,
got one.
Yeah,
There you go.
and how different the show is now than when we
really
started
is,
it.
yeah.
We had the little fluffy whistly intro music, and we were, we
That was
weren't.
with Morgan. You were talking about that with Morgan, right?
No, somebody at work I was talking to.
Oh.
I was talking to about older shows, and then we pulled up an old episode that contained the information that we were talking about, and I hit play, and I was like, wow, that's so different. It's such. I don't listen to the old episodes unless like I have something I need to go back for.
Right.
But for the most part, I don't listen back that far. So anyway, yeah, it was meant to tell my story, and then politics and Trump, and we became a very different thing.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Oh no, not at all. Oh, I think I mean,
Trump's a bad thing.
very happy with where the show has come. Speaking of changes to the show, If you are subscribed, and you should be, to our feed to listen to the podcast on the podcast feed at your podcast player of choice, we switched hosting providers this weekend. Last couple of days, I've been working on getting everything migrated over. So we're on a new hosting platform, which will give us better statistics and not that it was an issue, but reliability with being able to connect and download our show. So if you notice any hiccups, let us know. So far it's been pretty seamless, but just in case. Let's take a quick moment before we go too far into the show topics that I have planned out, because we were talking pre-show about our Bernie Sanders action figure, and Mandy said that she bought the Hillary
I did.
action figure.
Not ashamed.
No. And so that brought up, how did that conversation start?
I think that was that was it. I saw
right.
the Bernie one and I was like, oh, I have the Hillary one.
Right.
And then you were like, oh, we ordered Obama and
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Thank you.
Russell ordered.
Russell's gifting again.
Right. So, but that led us to a conversation about like, you voted for Hillary in the primary and in the general.
I did, yes.
And I voted for Bernie in the primary and Hillary in the general. And I'm here to tell you, this is why I wanted to bring this up. I'm here to tell you that if you're still fucking talking about that, if that's still a thing for you, if you're still Hillary fucked Bernie over and ruined the election, if you're never Hillary, if you're still... That's over.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
That's over. You are acting just as badly as the Republicans who bring up Obama and Hillary every time anything happens. Right?
We can't go back and change what happened.
Hillary's not the president.
Bernie's not the president.
It's over.
Yeah.
Move on.
And guess what? Tough elections coming up this fall. So get the fuck over it now so that you're ready to go out and do what we need to do.
And what I'm really worried about is coming up in 2 years, I don't see any strong Democratic
candidates.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wow. You cut her off.
Stepping forward. Really.
For the presidential run?
Yeah, to take a lead. I mean, hopefully it's a little early still, but I'm getting a little...
Right. In the circles that...
For those of you who missed that was...
In the circles that I kind of run in online, there's a kind of a split. I think the Bernie crowd specifically is kind of a split. Kamala Harris is looking good. Not necessarily has she doesn't necessarily have the name recognition.
Right.
Elizabeth Warren is another name I hear floated.
I hear it. I don't know if she'll...
But yeah, I don't know.
I've heard Cory Booker every once in a while.
Yeah.
I don't hate him.
Yeah.
But...
So, yeah. I think what they're doing is we're going to get through the midterms before anybody...
Or the midterms, yeah.
Yeah, before anybody comes forward. Okay, and the other quick...
Blue tsunami. I like that, Dan.
I hope. I hope.
Doesn't a little part of your stomach worry?
Yeah. Oh, like there's a little part?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm real worried.
For the most part, I was like, yes, we're gonna have everything's gonna be blue, and we were going well and blue, and all of a sudden, I felt like there's this little bit of a turn, and I see these news stories, and I see these people, and I'm like, okay, so maybe not, and what's gonna happen? And it's scary.
Yeah. Definitely. The other topic I wanted to talk about in our sort of Marin Open here before we get into the real meat of the show is Second Civil War. You guys follow that? So Alex Jones goes on his crazy ass InfoWars and says that on July 4th the liberals were going to start a second civil war. Now,
I tried. I had to work, so I had to postpone it.
Now the best thing to come out of this, of course, is the internet does what the internet does with crazy shit like this. And so you end up with there were a couple of different hashtags. Hashtag Second Civil War Letters was one of them. And there was another one, but these are people on Facebook and Twitter who have posted messages as if it was written in the style of a soldier at war in what we think of in traditional war, like writing home to loved ones, right? So let's see. Here's some example. Darling, while this war has been tiresome, I don't expect it to last. Red Hat casualties are mounting. They choose not to treat their wounded brethren. Instead, they just scream, "I'm not paying for your health care!" and leave them for dead. Yours always. Dear General Rodham, we have gained on the enemy by building a wall of your emails,
General
which
Rodham.
they can't get over. Right?
Oh, wow.
Isn't
that
that
was
great?
great.
Dear Queen Elizabeth, we may have made a mistake a few hundred years ago. Just wondering if you might consider taking us back. Could we at least borrow William and Harry and their spouses? We don't seem to have a first family. And I posted one that's a picture of tiki torches in a display in a store. It says, "My love, we've not slept for 2 days. As the Red Hats advanced on our position, our commandos raided every Home Depot in the region, cutting off their supply line. It's only a matter of time before the darkness and mosquito bites turn them back." So if you haven't followed the
Some of
second
those are really good.
hashtag Second Civil War letters and hashtag letters from the Second Civil War, they're both some funny stuff. Okay, so I have one more story.
Oh my
Sorry,
God.
no, I have one more story to tell because
I thought you broke for a second.
So, I never told my Planned Parenthood story, did I? On the show.
I don't think you did because there's so
I
much
don't
going
know
on.
about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know
Okay.
bits and pieces from what we've texted, but I don't know like the
Right.
whole thing.
Yeah, we
Right.
had so much going on that we haven't.
Yeah, we were at Polk Pride and
We had
then Pride
interviews
48
and
and
we
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, let me preface this story by saying I have been and want to be
Keep it.
an advocate of Planned Parenthood because of the things that they are doing when it comes to reproductive health.
Mhm.
I want to support them, but they made it real fucking hard for me about a month ago.
And that's really disappointing
Yeah.
because I've always supported them. So I'm curious
Yeah.
to hear the whole story.
And I posted this story
Yeah.
on the website. I wrote it out, but that's not nearly as exciting as me telling you the story.
Is it ever?
So I have been I've been seeing a doctor that's like in downtown Orlando for my hormone replacement therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not convenient to get to. I-4 is tore up. You can't drive anywhere, go in that direction. And it's opposite of the way we live. So I have to like go away from home to go to and come back past work because I usually go after work. So it's just not convenient. And so I've been looking for something closer to home. But it's so hard to do because like you have to just call around and go, "Hi, I'm trans. Do you do trans things?" Because nobody, like, it's so hard to find somebody who knows what they're doing. And you'll
Right.
find people who will say, "Sure, we'll see you." No, that wasn't my question. Do you have experience treating transgender patients? I'm not
Right.
going to be your test case,
Right.
right? So I thought, I'll go to the local Planned Parenthood. I've heard good things about them. I know that they are inclusive. They have, I don't know how recently, but they offer in many of their locations trans care. And so I thought, all right, I'll go there. So I called and made an appointment on the phone. They were all great, but I think it was a national call center that books the appointments. So I fill out the questionnaire ahead of time online and go to my appointment. And the office staff was great. I didn't wait very long. It was kind of a hole in the wall in an old strip mall.
This wasn't the one downtown.
No, and I'm not gonna. Yeah, I don't want to say exactly where it was.
okay.
She didn't want to go to downtown Orlando anymore.
Got it.
Right.
Got it. Okay. The
So-
only one I've been to is the one downtown. So
Okay. Yeah. So this is like in a strip mall. It's older, dated. You could
Right.
tell like it just needed some TLC.
Right.
Right. But then I thought, well, they serve a cross section of the community that Okay. So maybe it's location. That's the important thing for them. So I filled out the questionnaire, and the questionnaire was I felt a little intrusive. It asked a bunch of questions that I didn't think were necessary, but I thought, that's probably just a basic intake form, right? Go to the appointment. They take me to the back, and the one positive out of this whole thing, I think, was I love that they do the blood draw and labs right there. So where I'm currently at, they have to give me a referral to go to Quest Labs or whatever
Right.
and have my labs done.
Right.
And then so I have to make 2 appointments to do all of that. They do it all in-house. I thought that was great. So on the scale of how pleased am I with my visit, I'm pretty high up at this point. And then the nurse comes in, and she was great too. We had some trouble transferring my medical records from the other office, from the other doctor. So we were, trying to sort that out. And then she basically re-asks the questionnaire. So, how many partners do you have? How often are you sexually active? Are you sexually active? How often? Are your partners male, female, transgender, et cetera, et cetera? And I'm thinking this whole time, what has that got to do with me taking hormones?
Right.
For gender transition? Okay, but maybe maybe this is just part of their standard thing, right? So I go along with it. How many partners have you had in your lifetime? When was the last time you were tested for HIV? Guys, this has nothing to do with trans care. This is not what I came in the door for. But I went along with it, right? She was nice. I went along with it. So I can't remember if there were other things in that conversation that threw the red flags up. But then they took me in to meet the provider. And I sat down in this little office next to her, and she had my paperwork, and she looks at my paperwork, and she points to the F on the gender marker, and she says, after the pleasantries, right? Hi, nice to meet you. Okay. So she says, with her finger on the F, did you fill out the intake forms yourself online? Yes, I did. Okay. And your gender at birth was? And I said, male? Okay. And she points at the F. Again, kind of taps the paper. Well, until you've had your name change and your driver's license and Social Security and all of these things updated, you don't have the right, her words, you don't have the right to mark your gender as female. And it was everything I could do not to it's fight or flight in that. I was ready to leave.
Right.
I'm done. We are done here. Never coming back. I will add a postscript to the story. I have been playing phone tag with someone from the Central and I don't know what it is, the Orlando, Tampa, basically, region of Planned Parenthood to try to talk this through because, I want to give them an opportunity to address these concerns and I want to know that they're going to be corrected.
Right.
Right. So I took the experience as an opportunity to tell the story because I don't want anyone else to have to go through something like that again.
So out of curiosity, did you leave at that moment or did you finish the appointment?
No, I finished the appointment. Yep.
And did you provide her with, well, here's my name change, here's my driver's license change?
No, so she said that, and then I said, oh, yeah, I did all of that. Oh, well, then you're good. Blah, 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 and she just went on, right?
No, I'm not trying to put this on you.
No.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah. No, I left that detail out. You're right. But so the approach should have been, hi, Sarah, nice to meet you.
Have you done this?
Yeah.
This and this?
So before we talk about your medical history and your chart and stuff, just out of curiosity, where are you in the process? What all, you
Right.
said you've been on, but here's the other thing. I've been on cross-sex hormones for 2-3 years.
Right.
So
yeah, the way she
she was
worded
treating
that,
me like a new patient.
well, it doesn't matter. The
No,
way
you're
she
right.
worded that was way out of context.
Yeah, new patient.
Completely
or not.
wrong.
Like,
Yes.
I mean, the first few questions is typical for Planned Parenthood. Like, I wouldn't go there for birth control, and they ask those questions regardless.
Yeah.
But for her saying you don't have the right, that's her personal
Right.
opinions.
Right. And hey, if there is a legal reason,
Right.
right? So in some places,
there's a way to say it and a way not to say it.
Right. And so in some places, the law is unless you've had the surgery, then
Right.
what's on your birth certificate is what matters, or whatever, know. But yes, there's a much better way to approach that. Again, so tell me where you are in your transition process. I know this is not your first appointment to,
Well, and the other thing, this is the part that just drives me bananas. So there's a clerical side of this. When you call any doctor's office, you need to give them your insurance information, and they have to verify that before you go.
I handed them my driver's license when I checked in.
Right. So if she's looking at a chart and your chart says that your name is Sarah, that would mean that your insurance would have to reflect that same name.
Right.
Otherwise, their papers would have the name on the insurance.
Right.
For billing purposes.
Right. So anyway, I tell the story and I wrote the article on SarahTalk118 if you want to go read like the full, like I wrote like right after it happened. So it was fresh in my mind.
Right.
Timestamp that. You're going to have to edit it.
Okay.
I said your name.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I'm 2 for 2 tonight.
God, you're quit. You're just quit while you're ahead.
A sip of whiskey and pain pills.
Okay, so what the fuck was I saying? Okay, so the reason I wrote the article,
last name. Yeah. You're right.
The reason I wrote the article and I'm telling the story is because as trans people go, I'm pretty privileged, and I recognize that while I do suffer from, anxiety and depression and things set me off, I have my triggers, I have, my problems, generally speaking, like I was okay to handle that situation. But I know there are far many more people who are not. And for whom that you don't have the right conversation would have sent into a downward spiral that could have led to a suicide attempt. Anyway.
And the whole basis of Planned Parenthood is to be that person or be those people that's lacking in healthcare.
Right.
And be those people to help you.
Step in, yeah.
So the fact that you get there and you're saying, hey, I want this help and I need this help, and they're telling you that you don't have the right, fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I will add, there's a journalistic component to this too. So I wrote the thing and I wanted to leave it open so that I could follow up and go back onto the article and say, I reached out to Planned Parenthood to resolve this or for comment, and here's what happened. Right. Anna Eskamani reached out, and she was apparently once upon a time executive director of the Central Florida, whatever, Planned Parenthood. And she was like, tell me what happened. What do I need to do? Like, if somebody needs to get fired, I need to let me get involved.
Yeah.
Let me let me get you in contact with someone. And I was like, pump the brakes, hold on, right? Because the journalist in me wants to know how they would handle this for someone else,
right?
Who may not have a connection, just average patient coming in, who's trying to get follow up and have their complaint resolved. What does that look like? Yeah. So I let that process go. I will let you know when I get to the point where I'm like, okay, well, they haven't called me, so you can go, raise hell. But anyway, so we've been playing phone tag, trying to, because of my schedule, and I'm always asleep when they call me, and then they're not in the office when I call them. But anyway, so there you go. That's the Planned Parenthood story. Let's move on.
I'm stressed out reliving it. Wasn't even me.
If you think I'm stressed out now.
No, me.
Okay, so this story was sent in to us from one of our listeners.
Ooh.
Ohio conservatives are promoting a bill that would require teachers and others to disclose any incidents of a child demonstrating, quote, a desire to be treated in a manner opposite the child's biological sex, end quote, or exhibiting any signs of gender dysphoria. So my old friend Paul sent this article, and I'll read his comment to you. Paul and I used to work at Disney together back in the day. And we would sit out at the smoker's table and have like deep philosophical conversations in the span of a 15, 30-minute break or whatever. And I really miss those chats because he's one of those guys that we can be on complete opposite sides of the issue, but it's the most respectful conversation with a person you've ever had. And I love that. And I miss having those chats with him. So he says, wow, so many topics and questions here. Therapy, treatment, parents' rights, child rights, school reporting responsibility. I could go on. We need a smoker's table and about 8 hours of free time. So we're going to dig into this thing, and I'm going to try to come at this from the perspective of a trans person who experienced gender dysphoria as a teenager and also as a parent of 2 kids. Okay? Ohio House Bill 658 would make it a 4th-degree felony if any government entity, including schools, provided any treatment without consent of parents or guardians. Treatment is broadly defined here as anything from educational materials to actual therapy. So I'm going to read from the bill text, which you should always do when you see a bill come up. Don't necessarily trust the news writer's ability to break it down and include all the important things, right? So we're going to start in section 2131.14. Gender dysphoria means the condition of feeling one's emotional and psychological identity as male or female to be opposite to one's biological sex. And so we have to start out defining our terms. Gender dysphoria treatment includes any of the following used to treat the condition or symptoms of gender dysphoria: educational materials, classes or programs, medical, psychological, social, or other professional treatment, therapy, counseling, or other services. Government agent or entity means either of the following: a person who has supervisory authority or care over children as an agent, employee, contractor, or volunteer for a public children's services agency, private child placing agency, court, or school district. A public children's services agency, private child placing agency, court, or school district. The next section, let me see where I'm at on my notes here. So the next section is the parent's guardian or custodian in exercising the fundamental right to care for their child may withhold consent for gender dysphoria treatment or activities that are designed and intended to form a child's conceptions of sex and gender. The state, its agents, and political subdivisions shall not infringe upon or impede the exercise of this right. And as I was writing that, when I made my notes, I completely missed the bit about design and intended to form a child's conceptions of sex and gender. That's really broad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Section 2131.142. It is the policy of the state that the parent's guardian or custodian of a child retain the right to determine what is in their best interest of the child regarding the following. 1, the child is diagnosed with gender dysphoria. 2, the child exhibits symptoms of gender dysphoria. 3, whether the child should participate in classes or programs with or without accompanying educational materials, classes, or programs related to sex and gender. 4, any counseling, therapy, or treatment provided to the child regarding the child's gender dysphoria. And the section .143 says if a government agency or entity has knowledge that a child under its care or supervision has exhibited symptoms of gender dysphoria or otherwise demonstrates a desire to be treated in a manner opposite of the child's biological sex, the government agent or entity with knowledge of the circumstances shall immediately notify in writing each of the child's parents and the child's guardian or custodian. The notice shall describe the total circumstances with reasonable specificity. So, there's kind of two separate issues going on here, right? There's the government agency, including schools, cannot provide treatment to a child without written parental consent. And the second is, the minute the agency becomes aware of a child exhibiting gender dysphoria signs, they have to notify the parents in writing. Now, unfortunately, a lot of trans kids don't have supportive family. They know from things their parents have said about gay or trans people that coming out to their family would be a dangerous thing for their emotional health, for their physical health. They expect consequences ranging from psychological or physical abuse to being kicked out of the home, even. That stuff happens all the time. So kids need to be able to confide in other adults that they can trust. They have to. But they can't trust the adults at school if there's this policy that requires the school to rat them out in writing to each of the parent or guardians. So while I definitely want to know what's going on with my own kids, right? So that was the trans perspective. Now I'm a parent, put my parent hat back on. I want to know what's going on with my kids, but I also want them to be able to trust other adults too, if they feel like they can't trust us with something.
Right.
Something big like that. Think about, we're talking like teenagers, right? Preteen teenagers. Think about how often during puberty the relationship between the child and the parent gets strained. They don't want to talk to you about nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to create a family atmosphere where my kids can talk to me about whatever, but you know, not everybody does that well, and I don't even know that I'm doing that well.
Right.
Now, would I want them to provide treatment to my child without consent? No way. No, absolutely not. Mandy is furiously scribbling. I'm getting ready to move on to the next section.
I was writing down, where does the liability lie?
Right.
So let's first say something happens, be it bullying or suicide or whatever could happen, or due to not talking to an adult or talking to an adult at the school and the school not handling it correctly. Will the liability, I mean, it's such a fine line, because the parents are going to sue the school then for not doing the due diligence to inform the parents.
The very last section in the bill basically releases liability to all parties and says, hey, whatever happens, happens.
Wow. Well, there you go.
If I read it right.
The thing,
I feel like this is just a mess. This is just a mess.
The thing that got me, and maybe it's just because of how I related, like, as a teenager.
No, I read it wrong.
Oh.
A person injured for a failure to comply with sections .14.149 of the revised code may bring an action for damages and equitable relief against the government agent or entity. But that could also be, so here's how I interpret that. And I'm not a lawyer, just play one on podcast. Failure to comply with those sections would be failure of the school to report it to the parents.
Right.
So the parents could bring damages against the school. Or
so in a sense, then
agency or whatever.
This bill is releasing the school of liability.
Yeah.
Is that's what I'm trying to figure out, is where is the liability falling?
Yeah, I mean, it provides for relief if the school doesn't handle it as written in the bill, right?
Because a parent, no matter how dangerous they could be, saying, so the kid feels, I'm transgender, I can't talk to my parents at home, I'm going to talk to a trusted guidance counselor at school. Talks to said guidance counselor. For this reason, that, or the other, they still end up committing suicide. the parents find out, the school and guidance counselor are held accountable for not informing the parents, even though the situation could have been worse at home.
Victoria brings up a good point. What if any of these points were included in a sex ed class? Can that be used to out a student or punish the teacher? Yeah. Well, and the I think the group that's behind stuff like this doesn't want you to teach sex ed in schools anyway.
Right, and that's what I was gonna get to next.
What I want to know is what is their definition or list of symptoms of gender dysphoria?
Right.
Because there are a lot of girls out there that are tomboys and they dress like boys, even though they don't necessarily have gender dysphoria.
Right.
I was one of them. For a very long time in my,
I imagine they're using the DSM-5s.
But it worries me with
clinical
that power.
Sure.
Like the guidance counselor, if they got to stick up their butt, they might notice certain things that, and go, oh, I got to write a letter and cause a whole bunch of ruckus for no reason.
On the opposite side of the spectrum, who's to say, like, whose job is it? It's not their job to out somebody else.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And because they send a letter to the parents, what other can of worms is that opening?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're not ready to be outed, you're not ready to be outed. And
let's come back to that in a second. So let's move on. Section 2131, 144. A government agent or entity may authorize or provide gender dysphoria treatment for a child only after receiving the written informed consent of each of the child's parents and the child's guardian or custodian. Consent to be valid should include a statement that each of the parents and the guardian or custodian received the information described in the section, which is the information coming up.
I have a question.
I do too. Go
on. Please explain treatment.
So that was defined in the beginning.
I'm sorry.
They defined that in the beginning.
Anything from like providing them educational materials to therapy to any
case by
kind
case.
Of,
So are we gonna like? I don't want them to be
it's
like
broadly defined.
Hey, no, like you are not gonna be transgendered. You are not gonna be gay. You are not gonna be. What world are we?
So my question is, so say you've got a kid who maybe mom knows, but dad doesn't because dad
Come into that.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Section 2131, 145. In order to obtain written informed consent under the section prior, a government agent or entity shall provide full and complete disclosure of all of the following with regard to the proposed gender dysphoria treatment. So I guess we've determined that this is what's going on and we'd like to treat them. They have to inform the parents of the short and long-term effects of the treatment, comprehensive review of the safety and efficacy of the treatment supported by controlled randomized research, a review of whether relevant agencies have approved the treatment for the purposes for which it is to be administered. The parents, there's an issue here in the language that you may not have caught. It says that consent includes a statement that each of the parents and guardian or custodian received the information noted. And this is where you were just heading. Mm-hmm. What concerns me here is the each parent language. Yeah. So now we're into divorce custody territory. Right. So say parent A has sole custody and parent B doesn't have visitation rights, but they're still, still their parent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does that mean both parents have to be contacted and both parents have to give consent? And what in the case that parent B in this hypothetical, who otherwise has very little to do with the child at this point, what happens when that parent says, hell no, my kid ain't queer?
Right.
Now, maybe I'm not properly interpreting the parents or legal guardians language correctly in light of child custody agreement. I don't know, but if you're a lawyer, let me know.
Well, I think if you're not interpreting it
nobody's going to be.
That leaves it up for a lot of interpretation, which means that this is just going to be a huge mess.
I hate things that are written so vaguely that it can be interpreted anyway, because then it's like...
Right.
Unless you have a really good lawyer to fight for you, which most people who are raising children don't have that kind of money.
And it sounds like, in the language of this, they're also talking about like kids in the system. when it talks
Right.
about guardian.
Right.
So if you
Oh,
get
yeah.
court appointed.
Sure.
Okay. The next section, 2131-146, is the parents, guardian, or custodian of a child shall not be subject to adverse action as a result of the refusal to permit gender dysphoria treatment or for refusal to provide written informed consent for such treatment for the child. So if they refuse treatment, if they refuse to provide a consent, then parents aren't liable because they're in the best interest of their child, right? Including adverse action under any of the following. A, allocation of parental rights and responsibilities regarding the child under the section above. So this could be, you can't use the parent's decision whether or not to consent to treatment in the custody battle that eventually happens. A determination of custody by a juvenile court under Division A2, section that, complaint, adjudication, or disposition that the child is an abused, neglected, or dependent child under Chapter 2151 of the Revised Code. So the parents can say no to any treatment, and again, like I'd want to know what's going on in my kid's life, but this gives the parents absolute immunity,
Right.
and I'm not sure what to make of that one.
I go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even decide if the bill or if it's legislative, whatever.
Right.
I can't even decide if it's positive or negative.
Right.
I can't even decide which way it's coming from.
Yeah. Section 2131-147 describes medications, and the last section talks about the legal recourse that I mentioned earlier for damages on failure to comply. And sets the standard of felony of the fourth degree. So again, this is a bill as introduced, right? It hasn't been debated and beaten back and forth and through all the committees, and this is at the very beginning of the "I'm just a bill" song, right?
Who proposed it?
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't have it on here.
I think. How about this?
Yeah.
If we're talking, because I'm thinking about kids in middle school, kids in high school.
Yep.
And I know that there's kids that are younger than that are going through these things too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe, like if it was my kid right now, I would want the school to tell me. Because he's not.
Right.
I don't know that he would have the words.
But what would they tell you?
But just tell me something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Get me in the and he has a really great guidance counselor. I'm sure if
Right.
there's anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
How do you decide what could lead towards?
Well, I think when kids are going through things, there's behavior patterns that change,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right. It affects other areas of their behavior.
A lot of things, and we went through this with our son with his own issues that he has with hyper, not being able to pay attention, and
Right.
things were suffering because he wasn't able to concentrate at school, and so I think there's a level of I don't know that it should be legislated. I think you just need to have the right people working in the school. But then I think
You can't guarantee that that's going to happen.
I know.
Right. That's
I
the
know.
problem.
But yeah.
So here's the men behind the bill: Thomas E. Brinkman Jr., Republican, and Representative Paul Zeltwanger, Republican.
So it's a Republican bill.
Old white Republican men. Yeah.
So that changes things a little bit.
I do think that for
And
high
I
school
hate
students,
saying that. I hate saying that.
I think for high school students, kids that are older that may have a reason that they're not telling their parents, I think maybe this whole you need permission from the guardian. I think you need permission from the student before you notify their parents.
Right.
For treatment, yeah.
Well, no, you need to be able to pull that kid in and say, hey, so we've noticed this. What's going on? Do you have a safe?
Right.
Are you safe at home?
Right.
Do your, or do you need There's got to be.
They are on the scale of parents' rights versus child rights. They're putting all of the weight into the parents' rights.
Yeah.
The parent has the right to know what's going on with their kid. And yeah,
but
but also we need to keep these kids safe.
Yeah.
So So we'll watch that one. And again, remember,
It is
we're only
interesting.
discussing this in the context of schools,
Right.
right? And it also talks about like other government agencies and stuff.
Right.
So is this kids in the foster system? And how
Yeah.
does that play out?
Yeah. It's just insane.
Let's move on.
Okay.
If you want to comment, tell us what you think. 224-40-SARAH. Call and leave us a voicemail. I'll play it on a later show, and we'll come back and revisit this.
We haven't had any since John, right?
Right.
Okay, because last week Morgan found out, and she said that we would be
She was
sorry.
excited, and then
that, and I was hoping that we'd hear from Evan at least, but we didn't even get that.
I know, right?
About what?
She said she
that
was
we
going to
do-
call and
yeah.
leave a message, and we'd regret giving her the phone number.
Morgan.
So Evan should at least call us and let us know how his summer
You're right.
vacation is
We'd
going.
rather hear from Evan. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm just saying if Morgan doesn't have anything to talk about yet.
Okay. So I kind of warned you about this when we sat down, but I didn't realize how this is 3 pages long.
What is it?
This is the rant that leads into the
You have a
the second
3-page
half.
rant?
Kinda. I'm gonna.
Honey.
Do I
So
need
no,
to
listen.
start pouring them?
No,
more?
Can we
you
take
know
a
what?
break
I think
first?
we all need to. No, it leads to a break.
At least there's a break in there somewhere.
Yeah.
That's right. You did say that. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Okay, but no.
and I'm
so
not allowed to interrupt the rant.
no, the rant. No.
So I have
Nobody
to.
can interrupt the
I
rant.
have to jot notes down.
I may even just turn your microphone
you-
off.
Do
Then you'll
you-
know.
Do
I
you
can
need to
talk
hold
really
something in your
loud.
hand while you're ranting so we know that you're ranting?
No.
Or will we know?
You'll know.
Mm.
You'll know.
Okay, so I'm going to be furiously writing then if I have things I need to say.
Do you need more paper?
But then we're gonna go to a break and come to a completely another topic.
Oh,
Oh,
I'll just ignore that
okay,
this
There's
time.
no rebuttal, Mandy. That's
get
what
into
she's
this.
trying to tell you.
No. Let's get into this. The first part of the story is conversational.
Oh,
and,
okay.
And we can discuss.
All right.
It's the ending that I'm fucking mad about.
Maybe we'll agree with you.
I'm sure we will. Okay, so I want to start this next story with an apology, and actually, this has a lot to do with apologizing. From CNN, a group of Christians attended a pride parade to apologize how they've treated the LGBT community. This particular pride parade took place in Marikina, Philippines, which I think a lot of people missed.
Yeah, I
Like, a
think
lot
so,
of
too.
people were like, "Hey, look at this article, and isn't that great?" And I was like, "That's not American Christians. Like, that's in the Philippines."
So what?
But
what
okay,
part of Philippines?
Marikina, Marikina, where members of the Church of Freedom in Christ Ministries stood at the main entrance with signs saying things like, "We're here to apologize for the ways that we as Christians have harmed the LGBT community," and "I used to be a Bible-banging homophobe. Sorry." Or, "Jesus didn't turn people away, neither do we." And on its face, that looks great.
That looks great.
Now,
on
I've had
face.
this conversation online in several places over the last week, and I want to share it here now because people are really hailing this as a moment of like super progressivism, and it may be. This may be progress, right? Hemant Mehta over at The Friendly Atheist wrote a compelling counterpoint, and I'll link this in the show notes, but it's titled, "Don't Get Suckered In by These Christians Apologizing at a Pride Parade." Hemant says, quote, "It's all well and good that these people are saying they're sorry. They have a lot to be sorry about. Still, you should ask yourself several questions when you look at that picture. Are they saying they support same-sex marriage? Do they think it's okay for same-sex couples to adopt children? Do they think homosexuality is a sin? Do they think two guys having sex is inherently more sinful than if a man and a woman were doing it? I don't see those answers on their banners." And then he challenges you, should you see such a display as you're out and about, ask them where they or their church stand on marriage equality or adoption rights, or whether or not Christian bakers should sell cakes to gay people the same fucking cakes that they would sell to straight people. And now, in some of my responses, I've added a bit to Hemant's list because I think his response spoke well to the L and the G, but not so much to anything else. And some of these thoughts were derived or poorly remembered from a blog post that Morgan had shared once upon a time. a while back, and I found it. It's from the Bookish Bear blog titled 7 Reasons Why LGBTQ People Don't Want to Go to Your LGBTQ Inclusive Church. And I'll link that in the show notes as well. Also a very good article. So here's some more things to consider if your church starts, apologizing for the poor treatment of LGBTQ people, or if you go to an LGBTQ inclusive church. These are some questions. And we've mentioned some of this stuff. Who are we talking to? Sarah Fortney at Pride 40, or at the Pride event at Polk Pride. We were talking about considerations in the church, and she was listening intently because schools have to deal with that too. I think that's who that was. I think
that's who it was. Yeah.
So, does your church set expectations that all romantic relationships should be on a path to marriage and children? Not everybody wants to get married, even if it's available to us now. So, is sex outside of marriage a sin? Has your church considered how to address issues of trans people using their restrooms? Often, unless they've actually encountered a trans person in the wild, they haven't even... They don't have a plan. They haven't even considered. Sorry.
Slipped over and it was like way out.
The LGBTQ community is inclusive of polyamorous people. Is your church? A lot of queer people are into all kinds of kink, like BDSM. Where's your church on non-traditional sex? Do they preach that sex must only be for procreation? Do they say it can only be in the missionary position? Now, those are actual positions of actual church teachings. And while some churches may have evolved on all of these issues too, I don't think it's that progressive in Christianity quite yet. Do you address the congregation as ladies and gentlemen or similar binary greetings? You're leaving out non-binary people. And I said that out loud to someone that I know very well, and that person scoffed.
Really?
At the idea that ladies and gentlemen, now we can't even say ladies and gentlemen because somebody's offended. Didn't say that, but that was what the was. I read I'll tell you that story off the air.
Yeah.
Our Sunday school classes, this is one of my favorites. Are Sunday school classes and Bible study groups divided into men's and women's? Does your church have a women's Bible study and a men's Bible study? Where does your church place trans people or non-binary people in that model and still make them feel welcome? And more than that, why the fuck are you segregating women away from men anyway? Does your doctrine profess that there are wildly different messages in your holy book for men or women? Take a classic from 1 Corinthians 14, 34 through 35. Women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home, for it is disgraceful for a woman to speak in the church. If your church is separating men from women to study the Bible, you should be asking questions and demanding good answers. So, to the Christians holding these signs, I would say, being sorry needs to be more than a feeling. There has to be action with it too. And thanks for coming out and acting the action of coming out here and holding your sign. But it's not just about marriage equality or the general poor treatment of gay people by religion. It's about a lot of different people in our community and the different things that the church has told them are sinful too. And because of the damage you've already done, it's about even more than that. So the next string of stories will make you mad and lead us into the break. It's more than accepting gay people. It's more than marriage equality. A father and stepmother in the UK were sentenced last week for forcing their then 11-year-old son to perform sex acts with them in order to stop him from becoming gay. During the trial, it was revealed that when the boy was 11, the couple performed various sex acts on him, touching his genitals, oral sex, and made him, quote, suck on the mother's nipples. They also made the boy watch them having sex, all in an attempt to keep the boy from becoming gay, as if that's how any of this fucking works. The boy tried to report the abuse to police in 1998 when he was 16, but his father misled detectives, convincing them nothing was going on. The stepmother received a 9-year prison sentence while the father received 6 years. Now, let's not pretend that this is shocking. You may recall in February, the mother of 8-year-old Gabriel pled guilty to his torture and murder because her boyfriend thought the boy was gay. The father was convicted of first-degree murder in November and later given the death penalty, while this mother was sentenced to life in prison. Gabriel was found naked at their home in Los Angeles with a fractured skull, broken ribs, and burns. During the trial, we learned that he had been shot with a BB gun in his face and groin, beat with wire hangers, fed cat feces, and was bound and gagged for days at a time, had his head slammed into walls, and they forced him to wear traditionally female clothes to school and called him gay. And when he arrived at the hospital, Allison Segal, an RN, said that he had damaged genitals, a cracked skull, missing front teeth, 3 broken ribs, and patches of skin that were missing, burned or bruised. They also found BB pellets in his lungs and groin. He died 2 days after he was found. But that's not all. At the end of March, an Alabama man and his girlfriend were convicted for raping his 11-year-old autistic son because he thought his son was gay. Both were convicted of rape, sodomy, and sexual abuse of a child younger than 12. After finding his son in a compromising position with another boy, the father directed the girlfriend, who was 20 years old at the time, to perform sex acts on the child, and the child was forced to perform sex acts on the girlfriend. The prosecutor, Assistant DA Tim Douthit, said it was solely that the father was worried that his son was gay or might become gay. There was no evidence he had sexual attraction to his son or children. He just thought he could, for lack of better words, straighten him out. Now, I couldn't find any update as to their sentencing. But the girlfriend never appeared in court, and as far as I can tell, is still out with a warrant for her arrest. The worst part of that story is that Douthit says, now, nearly 2 years later, the boy still thinks it was his fault. He said that when a forensic interviewer asked the boy what was going through his mind during the rape, the child replied, "I was thinking, why is my dad doing this to me? Dad said to tell no one. I failed him. I just told you." So, while none of these stories specifically mentioned religious belief, if you want to be sorry for the damage you or your group, religious or otherwise, has caused in this country, please understand it's not just about the right to marry, or the right to adopt, or the right to pee in a bathroom or get a fucking wedding cake. We are fighting for our fucking lives here, for the lives of our children. And we have allowed religion in America to be the greatest contributor to an environment where parents are so fucking terrified that their kid might be gay that they torture, rape, or kill their own kid. We'll be back. You're listening to Sarah Talk.
It's important to buckle up your kids.
I know.
Sometimes car seats can be complicated.
I know.
And if your child's in the wrong seat and you get into a crash,
I know.
It could lead to a serious injury.
I know.
So you're 100% sure you have the right car seat for your child's age and size?
I don't know.
Don't think you know. Know you know. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Make sure you have the right car seat. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Are you ready for your first card? As I look at the set I placed down for you, I see an interesting things rising. Some of it has to deal with love and money and changes, and hopefully they're going to be for the better. Now your first card represents your situation. Maybe some problems you've been having. Maybe a little bit about yourself. Your first card is sorrow. This card is letting us know that there is some type of disruption in your life. Not that it's a big deal, but this card is giving off a strange vibe of anxiety. Actually, this card is warm in my hand. Oh, now caller, if you listen here, I'm seeing in the cards. Oh, yes, the 45 of mangoes. The 45 of mangoes card says you're going to go on to Patreon and subscribe because there is nothing better than giving when receiving. What will you ask me? Find out now and I see for you. Call me now for a free tarot reading.
In today's health-conscious society, you have many beverage choices. But do you know what's in all of them? So much sugar, sodium, and things you can't even pronounce. Dihydrogen monoxide. What's that? Sometimes you wish you just had a simple, more elegant solution for your beverage needs. Introducing H2O, the first ever chemical-free thirst quencher. H2O is simple, simply composed of 3 portions of 2 elements, hydrogen and oxygen. H2O means chemical-free, unlike water, which is filled with all sorts of shit. When we tested H2O, we found traces of no other elements. So pure, the bottle may as well be fucking empty, with all the same nutritional content as a breath of cool mountain air. First widely featured on Goop.com, actress Gwyneth Paltrow revealed that she exclusively uses H2O for her vaginal steaming process. After all, why use water when you can steam it with H2O? So now we invite you to run out to your local garden hose and drink that shit. Remember, it's not water, it's H2O.
H2O bottled by Flint Bottling Company in Flint, Michigan. Product not actually endorsed by Goop or Gwyneth Paltrow. Please do not use H2O for vaginal steaming, or better yet, please do not steam your vagina. H2O is actually just water. Water is a set of molecular compounds. It's a chemical. Everything is a chemical.
I was feeling so alone. I'm glad I asked for help. Whatever it is, ask for help.
If you're thinking about suicide or need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386.
Want to join the conversation or tell Sarah she's wrong? Email producer@SarahTalk.com or call 224-40-SARAH. That's 224-407-2724. Now, more Sarah Talk.
Welcome back to Sarah Talk. I'm Sarah Austin in the studio with my lovely wife Becca and OG co-host Mandy Imus. Listen,
Hi.
I apologize. I am the worst person at remembering to give content warnings before stuff like that. So for those of you who threw your headphones across the room and don't want to eat dinner now, I'm sorry, but that shit I had to get it out, and Okay, moving on. Happier times. Well, we're gonna, I don't know, happier, but we're gonna make fun of Rick Wiles for a little bit.
I feel like that's a happier time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So this story comes from the Right Wing Watch. Christian broadcaster Rick Wiles. God is using a brown invasion to push white people out of America as judgment for abortion. We're going to connect the dots here. Ready? On his True News television program, In Times broadcaster Rick Wiles had this to say.
Our soil is soaked in baby blood.
Okay, that's not true. Right off the bat, come on.
Is that what's going on with our tomatoes?
Maybe that's why our tomatoes aren't growing. It's all the baby blood. Jesus Christ.
4,000 babies killed every day. Their guts, their intestines, their brains, their blood flushed down the toilet in the baby butcher shops.
Okay, that's not how that works either.
And wait, what week of pregnancy does the baby develop intestines? Because I would really love to.
Well, so they think, of course, that all abortions happen the day before
the day before
birth.
the baby's
Right.
supposed to be born,
Yeah,
right? That's
exactly.
not an abortion.
No.
That's a cesarean section.
And I wish I had more time to research a counter to his 40,000 claim, because here's my problem with on the spectrum, the furthest right anti-abortion people, right? That call themselves, the family values pro-life people. They'll count the 40,000 feti that were, sucked up in a vacuum. They'll count those up, right?
Feti.
But once a baby is born,
Is that what the Octomom had?
Yeah.
And she
I'm going
had
to put
them
that
all
into
in her-
Urban Dictionary. Feti.
once the baby is born, we don't fucking care anymore. Nope. And you, by the way, we're getting rid of Medicare and Medicaid, and we're going to take away food stamps and welfare. Get rid of all those programs because you don't give a fuck what happens to the child after it's born.
And don't give the mom healthy health care to have the baby.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Goes into the sewer system, carried in the sewer pipes under the city streets, into the sewage system. Our country's soaked in blood.
Yes.
That's not how it works.
Does he even know how the sewage
That's
system
how
works?
any of it works. Yeah, in his mind, this is what happens. Graphic example coming. So pregnant girl who's about to have a baby like in the next week goes into the Planned Parenthood because that's that's the baby killing center. I changed my mind.
Baby butcher shop, he called
it. And then so they, glove up and reach up in there and pull the baby out, right? Snap its little neck and then flush it down the toilet. That's what he thinks happens.
Listen, that would definitely clog the toilet. That thing would not clog.
It wouldn't even make it to the sewer system.
We know what it takes.
Edit that out. Timestamp that.
Okay.
What?
Got it.
I missed.
You're fine.
He just.
Sorry. Edit that out too.
Edit that out too.
All right, moving on.
And the soil is crying out for justice.
The soil doesn't cry.
It does. Have you not listened to it?
No. Am I missing something?
Haven't you ever watched Pocahontas?
You're from the Midwest. Come on.
Yes.
So I've been warning for 20 years, if we don't repent, there'll be another people brought in that will push us off the land.
You've been warning this for 20 years.
Wait a minute, is that what happened to the Native Americans? They were sinful and they didn't repent, and so we came and just
But this is this is the end times nonsense, right? It's just like the J-Dubs changing the date.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been telling you for 20 years it's going to happen. When's it going to happen, Rick? Well,
but this is
apparently this prediction that he's making about the invasion of America is happening.
And I've thought all these years that Chinese, Russians, who's capable of invading us? It just hit me.
Right.
It just hit me in the past week. We've already been invaded.
Right. We're already
being pushed off the land.
Yes.
It's already happened. The judgment has been underway for years, and we didn't see it.
This is the judgment of God.
God's bringing another people into America.
Another people?
And pushing the white Europeans off the land.
Right? Can you believe this guy? The brown people are coming. Look out.
Oh, wow.
I know you're going to get really upset with me, but...
Yes! Yes!
That's the first accurate thing you've said.
It's the truth.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it fits the biblical pattern.
The
right?
Canadians are coming.
Listen to what he
Michael,
says right
that's
here.
hilarious.
I missed it. What?
He wrote, the Canadians are coming.
Now, I want you to hear what he says here because this is a very telling moment.
Perfect sense. I mean, it fits the biblical pattern, right?
Yes.
It makes perfect sense. It fits what I already think is true anyway. Because I read a book, and in the book, a lot of times God says, well, if you don't do what I asked you to, I'm going to let some other people take over your town. Happens all the time in the Bible.
Well, I read
So
the
that
Hunger
fits-
Games. Does that mean...
Yes. When is my Hogwarts letter coming? That's
I'm
all
waiting.
I'm saying.
Seriously.
And so we have a brown invasion that has come in.
brown invasion.
Yes, and they're not killing their kids. Think about
And they're not killing their kids. Okay. I would like to know what the...
No, we are kidnapping their kids.
Yes. Right. But listen.
Ding.
People in other countries have abortions too. And in fact, if you'll recall, it was less than a year ago that there was this real high profile case of a girl who came across the border
To have the abortion. Yeah.
And we went through this whole big
I
fucking
remember
legal
that,
thing
yeah.
about whether we should allow that or not. So yeah, Rick, they do.
Ooh.
Let's finish this up. Almost done.
About this. They're not murdering
brown.
their babies. This is the land vomiting the people out. And so all these years have been waiting on the Chinese to come and do it and not realizing God's...
I've been bigoting against the wrong fucking people this whole time.
Bigoting against the wrong...
In 2016...
Okay.
There were 18,104 abortions reported in Mexico. So I don't know what they're talking about. That's the latest figures I could find.
And that's reported.
It's reported. That's not
the back alley coat hanger abortion.
Right. That happened.
I apologize,
Dan can't see your
Dan.
light.
I'm sorry.
Dan takes his drinking game very seriously.
He really does.
There you go, Dan, just to catch up.
Okay.
God's doing it with Central Americans.
Okay. Now, if you think that's...
What are you doing? I looked up because there was like dead silence and you're like crying
no,
over
I'm
there.
not crying. My head hurts.
I mean...
If you think that's crazy, that's really just an extension of some nonsense from a couple of days prior on his show.
Oh, more nonsense. Go figure.
Judgment's coming. And don't think because Donald Trump's in the White House that's going to save us.
Well, now you told, maybe not you, but the religious right leaders told us all along that that's God's chosen man.
Yeah, I was definitely told that Trump is going to save us.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're just confusing.
He's going to save us from what? Our own sanity? That's all I got.
That's not going to save us. We're still murdering over 4,000 babies a day.
Okay, is it 4 million, 4,000, or 40,000, Rick? Which is it?
Oh,
Which is it?
He's confused. Look at that face.
He's like,
if it's possible to do a screenshot of the face that it's
perfect.
frozen on
I think
right
that
now.
should be the cover photo for the show.
We'll see. We'll see if we come up with a better title or something. Okay, here we go.
Hey, still killing them every day.
Good
Let
point.
me ask you, America.
What's the point?
Michael says it's interesting that abortions are being tracked, yet in the U.S. there's no official government organization that tracks how many kids are killed by guns.
Oh. Well, wait a minute, but it's not.
Amen.
Listen, it's not the guns that kill people, guys.
Right.
Come on.
It's the bullets.
Oh, I've had it wrong this whole time.
Right. So just ban bullets and we'll be okay. You can keep your gun.
Becca, you're brilliant.
I'm a genius. Woohoo.
When they slaughter a little baby in a Planned Parenthood baby butcher shop,
Oh, tell us, Rick.
where does that baby's blood go?
Do you remember?
Into the
Into
tomatoes.
the-
Where does the baby's brains and guts go?
Sewer.
Tell me where it goes. I'll tell you where it goes. It goes down the drain into the sewer system.
Score. Do I get something
And
for
the
that?
blood of those babies is running through your town's sewer
Oh my God. What an
under your
idiot.
street.
What if I don't have a Planned Parenthood in my town?
Is he talking about Flint?
Oh, is that all the aborted babies go to Flint?
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh, that is
Oh,
horrible.
that's terrible.
I may or may not be going to hell.
I think
Yes.
if there's a hell, you will be there.
Your seat is reserved.
Mandy, honey. Wow.
The sewage pipes in your city carrying the blood,
People, right?
the guts,
Just my
the
grandma.
brains, the tissue of all the babies murdered in your city today, going right into your city sewer system. You're actually drinking.
Oh, Jesus
You're
Christ.
drinking the baby's blood.
Okay.
Somebody please educate this man on how please.
Right.
Being recycled and going right back into the city water supply. Cannibalism.
Cannibalism.
Oh my God. What an... Oh,
But
God.
listen, people watch this fool.
And they believe this
and
shit.
they take it seriously, and they believe this shit. And now we're in a position where Donald Trump is about to nominate his second Supreme Court justice nomination, and they've said they are going after Roe v. Wade and probably Obergefell.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes time for people to get out and vote, the people who are going to vote watching this garbage, they're going straight for the anti-abortion candidate.
Uh-huh.
Show up in the fall. Vote. If you're not registered to vote, do
What
it.
the fuck is wrong with you?
Do it now.
Oh.
Okay. I have some good news. Here's some good news.
Sure.
A North Carolina House Bill 2 style effort in Montana, which would have put the question of where should trans people be allowed to exist to the voters, has failed. The Montana Locker Room Privacy Act would have let voters themselves, rather than the elected officials, decide whether to prohibit transgender people from using restrooms and locker rooms of their choice. So they had tried to move a similar bill through the legislature in 2017. That failed, so they kind of regrouped and tried to put it directly on the ballot and let the people decide. And the initiative gained, they needed to get 25,000 signatures in order for the measure to go on the ballot. They acquired less than 10,000 of the 25,000. I thought was great. So hopefully that's a sign that your average voter people are realizing this just isn't an issue. Nobody fucking cares. Nobody needs to care about, because there's not an issue there.
Right.
Okay. It's been a month since we've done this, and I know that our hardcore fans have been very disappointed.
Yeah.
So let's bring it back. The best stories start with
Florida man.
Now, we've played this game a few different ways over the years, and last night at work I came up with another idea to try.
Dan says 75 minutes into the show, Sarah, I have good news.
Well, come on. You know that I start low and end high. My goal is to always kind of end on a good or funny point. I try.
Anyway.
So I think we're going to try to play this sort of like Apples to Apples or Cards Against Humanity, right? Where we each submit a story for the listeners to decide from, rather than me culling all of the, putting all the stories together and then having everybody pick. Now the hard part about this is, like, we don't just pick a story, right? If it's just me and Becca on a normal night, it's just me and Becca, and Mandy's not here, or Michael's not here, nobody's here, it's just us. We each have to pick two stories in case we pick the same story, so you have a backup. So this week we had a listener submission. We had a listener send in a story, and if you missed this story, I'll be really surprised. But we'll start with that story, and Mandy is going to present to us the first story of a Florida man.
Okay. A 22-year-old Florida man was caught on camera clinging to the hood of a car, traveling 70 miles per hour down Interstate 95 near Miami. Junior Francis was holding onto the hood of the car with one hand and a phone on the other with authorities. He said both he and his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Patricia Isidore, needed the car for the night. But Isidore, well, she just beat him to it.
You gotta run faster, bro.
She said she needed to pick up their child and wasn't going to deal with any foolishness. So he jumped on the hood, thinking that would stop her from leaving. But boy, was he wrong. She drove from their home in Lauderhill to Miami-Dade County and back, which is like a minimum of about 30 miles total. Isidore was arrested and charged with culpable negligence. Francis refused to give a sworn statement or to press charges because they have a 5-year-old together.
They have a child together.
Oh my God.
Which she was going to pick up.
Right.
And who was probably in the car as he was holding on the way home.
Probably. Yeah, so I didn't...
Wait, was he holding on the way home too? Or
yeah,
so
it says on the way there and back.
Yeah.
So, what?
Drove out of Broward to Miami-Dade and back.
Right. So, but she said she was going to go pick up the child. So she probably went in, picked up the child, he just kicked it on the hood of the car.
Right, so...
And then she got back in and...
But
there was one point where she pulled over.
There had to have been.
She stopped the car and was like, come on, get off the car. And he was like, no, I'm not getting off the car. But look, you know what because I had this argument. You know what he's thinking? He's thinking, the minute I let go of this hood, that bitch is going to take off without me and leave me stranded all the way out here 30 miles away.
Yeah. But why didn't he just get inside the car?
Because she going to take off.
Right, but she had to go get the kid.
Yes, very troubled couple.
Who knows? That's crazy. Jesus.
Okay. So there's your first story.
But she does spell her name Patricia, not Patricia.
Right.
Patresha. Patricia.
She doesn't spell it that way. Her parents spelled it that way when she was born.
You don't know that.
I'm just saying. It's quite possible. It's very likely that that's the way her parents spelled it when she was born.
Okay. Becca.
Okay.
Your Florida man story for tonight.
Pay attention if you have a penis.
Oh, God.
Have you ever wondered what to do if your junk starts to hurt? One thing not to do is to make death threats. A Walton County man was arrested for doing just that. Police were called on a man that was screaming death threats at his neighbors. According to police reports, he was under the influence of drugs, covered in sweat, and claimed to have parasites from swimming in the creek. He said that he became upset with his neighbors because they wouldn't let him use their phone, and explained that his yelling and cursing and death threats were simply because his testicles were in pain.
Oh, my God.
Like, I kind of want to see how that played out.
I know. I couldn't find anything else on it. It only just happened, but...
Wow. I don't even know what to do with that. God, now I got to choose which story I'm going to read. Shit. It's going to be hard to top. These are both equally good.
Throw a boner. I mean, a bonus.
Throw a boner.
All right.
You got penis on the brain.
Well, no, I did that on purpose.
I gotcha.
Okay, here's my story then. Jorge Bustamante was fishing off Pompano Beach on his birthday earlier this week, looking for kingfish or mahi-mahi. But he ended up catching something else fishy. A 2-pound brick of marijuana. He notified the Coast Guard. Why would you notify the Coast Guard?
Notify me.
Jesus. Coast Guard comes to the scene and confirms it is indeed a big brick of marijuana. On Instagram, Bustamante joked that it was, quote, an early birthday gift from Pablo Escobar. Now, apparently, this is not uncommon in South Florida. Okay, I was not expecting that look on your face being from South Florida.
Yeah.
I was expecting you to be like, oh, yeah, this is all the time. No, it's not that
common.
I don't remember ever being out in the ocean finding marijuana, but I might not have realized that's what it was. So we need to go for a vacation down south. And
do you know what the popular local nickname for such a find is? Square Grouper.
Oh, jeez.
Nice.
Great.
Now, I didn't write a witty title for your story.
Oh, okay.
What should we call it?
Oh my
Do you want to think about that, and I'll read a bonus story?
Okay.
Okay. All right, the bonus story then is 49-year-old Florida man Douglas Kelly called the Putnam County Sheriff's Office asking them to test the drugs he bought a week earlier because he wanted to press charges against the person who sold them to him. He told police that after smoking what he thought was meth, he had a bad reaction and thought he was sold another illegal substance. Putnam County Sheriff's Office wrote on Facebook, quote, in an effort to ensure the quality of the drug the suspect purchased, detectives told Kelly if he came to the sheriff's office, they could test the narcotic he purchased. So Kelly drives on down to the sheriff's office and hands over the clear crystallized substance, which, you guessed it, tests positive for meth. He was promptly arrested and charged with possession and booked into the county jail. Are we voting? Or are we going to have everybody else vote? We should vote too, right?
Do we just say which one we like?
Yeah.
I like your story.
Which one? The first one?
The Square Grouper.
The Square Grouper?
Of course. I mean...
Oh, so you got to come up with a witty one-liner for yours.
Can this one be called 30 Miles on the Hood of a Car?
Sure. The one you're referring to, I called seaweed.
Oh, I get it.
Seaweed. Why don't they call it that? That's
right?
So obvious. The hell?
Maybe that's why they don't call it that, because it's so obvious. What's your vote?
No, pain in the testicles.
Pain. Yeah, okay. Is that you're voting for your own story?
Oh, I thought I was naming it. Yeah, I guess I'm voting for my story. Of course I'm voting for my story.
I like my story too.
All right, those of you listening in or watching.
Yes. I'll put a poll in the group later on or tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Victoria votes for the boy on the hood.
Nice.
Boy on the hood. I like that. That's a good
boy on the hood.
Boy on the hood.
Oh, I like that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Russell says square grouper.
He knew that. He said he knew that's what it was called.
Oh.
If you look up.
No,
earlier.
then he just typed in again square grouper.
Yeah. First he knew that it was called that, and now.
Now he's voting for it.
Dan says, and Sarah wants to razz me about the 92-year-old Arizonian woman who killed her son for trying to put her in a home. I sent Dan a story or posted it in the group. This crazy story out of Arizona, and I was like, look, I know you're missing the Florida man, but that doesn't mean Arizona needs to try to step up.
Dan voted for baby daddy on the hood.
Baby daddy on the hood. Listen, I know I'm from Michigan and everything. But on the hood, let's get a little. I know I made a joke about Flint earlier.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for listening in and watching on the Facebook
I know.
Live.
I wish I had Saturdays off more often.
You need to be here more often.
Well, if you just switch the days back Tuesday or Wednesday, this wouldn't be a problem.
It would be a problem for everybody but
else.
You.
Before we go, I do want to mention our awesome patrons, and we did pick up a new patron. We want to welcome Lamont to the Patreon family.
Yay!
Thank you so much for supporting what we do. That is enabling us to, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we switched hosting providers to solve some issues that we were having with the feed and provide some better services for both us as the show and for you as a listener. And so that costs extra money a month that the patrons are taking care of for us. So I appreciate you guys so much for doing that.
Aw, thanks, Matt.
For voting for Mandy's story.
This is the one the patron sent in, though, yeah?
Yes. It was a listener.
Is it Lamont?
Listener sent in.
Is it Lamont? Dan S. Lamont Cranston?
No.
Different Lamont.
Different Lamont. So you guys got me off the track.
Sorry.
I was on a
changing our
next week.
I was gonna say if it matters, I was only half listening.
That's okay. I'm not. Why would I be surprised?
Why would it matter?
Next week is an open show, so we'll probably, unless something comes up, it'll probably be another news night. On the 21st. We are going to be talking to a couple people from Collage, and they are an organization that's helping LGBT youth. So that's really cool. And then the following week, Saturday the 28th, I lined up tentatively with Adam Burns from Pride 48.
Yay!
So
Fun.
we had been talking. So we did the Pride 48 streaming weekend, and in the chat room, we were talking about experiences of gay conversion therapy and stuff like that.
He's got stories
and
to
Adam's got some stories to tell. So we'll find out some of those stories from him, and also, we'll talk about his podcast and Pride 48 and how that came to be, and talk about all the different things that they do. So we'll do that. That'll round out the month, and then we'll figure out what the hell else to do. We'll probably start getting a lot more political coming up.
Yeah, ooh, that's my favorite time of year.
All right, we'll see y'all next week. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Sarah Talk.
Sarah Talk is made possible by listener support. Visit patreon.com/SarahTalk to become a patron and help keep this program going. Contact Sarah and Company by email at producer@sarahtalk.com or call 224-40-SARAH. That's 224-407-2724. And follow us on social media, facebook.com/SarahTalkRadio and on Twitter @SarahTalkRadio. Sarah Talk is a production of Sarah Austin Media.